Story 1. So, a bit of backstory. I am a 28-year-old woman who just recently went fully blind. When I was a teenager, I volunteered with my local youth group to help rebuild Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. And while down there, I picked up a fungal parasite called histoplasmosis. Over a decade, it migrated to my eyes and slowly caused blindness. I've been totally blind for about a year now, so I'm pretty new to it. But I digress. When I first went blind, I barely left the house and was afraid to go in public. I felt like everyone was staring at me, and, in all honesty, I barely knew what I was doing. The transition had been difficult, and I didn't have any support group to teach me. One day, my husband asked if I could take a ride-share service to the bank and deposit a rent check. I reluctantly agreed. While out, he messaged again and reminded me that we were out of a few crucial groceries. There was a grocery store literally across the street from the bank. So I figured everything in life is an experience, and I'll have to learn how to shop alone eventually. So why not? Everything was fine at first, and I was only grabbing a few things, so I didn't need a cart. I was using my cane and what little echolocation skills I had at the time to get around, but was still bumping into things as we blind tend to do sometimes. My cane suddenly hit something a bit softer, and I figured maybe I had whacked someone's leg and apologized. Cue entitled kid and entitled mother. Me, shoot, I'm sorry. Entitled mother, hey, you just hit my son. Me, I'm so sorry. Ma'am, I didn't see him there. Entitled mother begins yelling. How could you not see him? He's clearly right here. Now I'm fully blind, but I don't wear sunglasses. Mostly because I can't afford a good UV blocking pair. But also I'm not ever looking for pity or to play the part of a generic blind person. I just want to be treated like a normal person. But I do understand her confusion as blindness is a spectrum. So I try to calmly explain. Me, ma'am, I'm blind. I can't see anything, let alone your son. That's why I have to use the cane, so I can get around without. She cuts me off. If you're blind, why aren't you wearing big sunglasses? Now, as a blind person, I get a lot of silly questions, but I understand a lot of them are just from people who don't know better. So I try to happily answer as many as I can. Me, those are really expensive, around $200 for a good pair, and I really don't need any inside. Entitled mother, you're not blind. You're faking it. Here is where my blood starts to boil. I can't think of any reason someone would want to pretend to be blind. It's an actual nightmare, and nothing angers me more than when someone calls me a liar when I'm not. Just as I'm about to respond, I feel a tug, and before I blink, I realize this little demon spawn has snatched my $100 cane from my hands. For those of you who don't understand, that's like if you're shopping and suddenly the power goes out, and you can't see a single light. Without my cane, I can barely move at all without crashing into anything. My voice gets shaky as I begin to panic. Please give that back. I really do need it. Entitled mother, no, you don't, you liar. My son deserves to play with this more than you. I hear her shuffle away and my expensive cane cracking into metal displays and such as they leave. I start crying and waving my arms in front of me to grab onto something, anything, and end up crashing and falling into a center aisle display, making a loud scene. Without fail, I somewhat curl into a ball and cry. I'm alone in public, in the dark, and I had no idea what to do. Suddenly, I feel a hand on my shoulder, and a man's voice, we'll call him Awesome Guy, asks if I'm okay and to stay right here. I do, but begin to at least sit up and listen. This man must have been tall and built like a tank because his footsteps sounded like a giant, and I felt a suction of wind when he took off. Maybe about 30 or 40 feet away, I hear this loud bellowing like an angry lion and a loud crash. Then, before I know it, the man is back and helping me to my feet. He takes my hand, puts my cane into my palm, and helps me pick up the items I dropped when I fell into the display. Me wiping tears from my cheeks. Thank you so much. I didn't know how to handle that. Awesome Guy, don't worry about it. Some people are just monsters. This guy restored my faith in humanity and even helped me finish shopping and helped me out of the store. As we're leaving, I can hear the familiar screeching of entitled mother. Something about Awesome Guy grabbing the cane and pulling hard, flinging her little devil child into a shopping cart. I don't know if she was exaggerating or not, but it would explain the crash I heard. It's easy to feel alone in a world without sight, but even through the sheer terror of being stripped of my cane, at least I know now that there are people willing to stand up for me when I need it. Story 2. So my friend is also friends with the vile entitled parent and asks if she can come over to a party that I'm hosting. I say, sure, why not, because I don't really mind it at all. The party comes along, and I ask my friends to help me set up because it's a bit hard on me lifting certain items alone. All the guests arrive, and the party is going well. I meet entitled parent and her kid, he's 12, and she asks if I can let him use the restroom. I tell them which door and leave it at that. A little later, my friend pointed out that they've been there for a while already, so I went to check. I realize the bathroom is open, and I'm about to ask my friend to call her when I hear Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower coming from my room. I go take a look and am shocked to see entitled parent and her kid going through my CD collection. I am not joking when I say that there are cases everywhere and the CDs are either on the floor or the bed. I asked her what on earth she's doing, and she said that her son wanted to listen to music, and she told him he could use my CDs. I am just in shock and politely ask her to leave. She says, "You know it'd be nice if you would let him keep the CDs," and I tell her again, "Please leave my room." What happens next is, to this day, better acting than Christian Bale in American Psycho. She throws herself on my bed and, I kid you not, begins to scream. "Help, help, he's trying to assault me." Some people came over, saw me in the room, and they immediately took her side and called for some guys to grab me and hold me. All the while, the entitled parent is telling her kid to grab my CDs. She tries to run, but my friend arrives to find out what's going on. She sees entitled parent and her kid holding at least 12 CDs each, and she asks why they're taking them. In entitled parent's defense, she claims, "He tried to assault me and pushed me on the bed when we were innocently looking at the CDs in his room." My friend looks at me, and I tell her it's nonsense. She takes my side and points out the camera I have in the hall to entitled parent and calmly says, "Well, if it did happen, then we could show footage to the police." Entitled parent went blank and realized that she messed up big time. She then proceeded to drop the CDs, then grabbed her kid and ran. The guys holding me let go and apologized. I look at my room to see the damage and am angry when I see that she broke 2 CDs when she threw herself on the bed. In the end, nothing else broke, and the party continued as if nothing happened. My friend cut off contact with entitled parent after this, and from what I last heard, she was trying to tell people she was in the right in this situation. Rest in peace to the CDs. Pantera's vulgar display of power and Biggie Smalls' greatest hits 2007. Update. I got a call earlier, and it turned out to be one of the guys that had grabbed me neckhole guy, and he was aggressively apologizing because he was drunk. I kind of figured by his speech that night, and his logic turned off. It could be so I don't charge him or something, but honestly, I don't care for him. It had been made worse because entitled parent tried calling me to ask about the deletion of the footage. Her voice made me feel such anger, especially after reading everyone's comments that she deserves some punishment for her little act. It especially angers me that her little friend group, excluding my friend that helped me, is taking her side of the story, so I got them to worry about now. Update 2. I took your advice and filed a report and gave a USB with the footage to the police. My friend said that entitled parent deleted her social media, and from what I know, she is going to court for something about her divorce with her husband. So I'm planning on giving her husband a copy of the video so he could turn the tide in his favor. Story 3. A friend of mine told me this story because they don't have Reddit, but still wanted me to share this long but crazy story about her sister who is currently still dealing with sister-in-law problems. Let's name her Ella for safety. I will be writing this from her point of view. Backstory. My name is Ella, and I am currently 28 years old. 7 years ago, I married my wonderful husband, Jake. But there's a catch. My sister-in-law has been trying to take the spotlight ever since I first became his friend. My husband and I have been childhood friends, and we both talked about anything that was on our minds. And as long as I can remember, my husband's sister, I'll call her Heather, always wanted all the attention on her. Once Jake and I were in middle school, Heather had just graduated high school and had their parents throw an extravagant graduation party just for her. Heather and all her friends trashed the entire house, but her parents brushed it off as kids will be kids. Yes, they actually said that, and had a maid clean the entire house. Basically, Heather got away with a lot of petty stuff, and her parents always enabled it because they're rich. Well, not crazy rich, but they were wealthy enough to have a big house and 3 luxury cars. Anyway, when we were in high school, Jake and I started dating and eventually got into a serious relationship. His parents loved me and showered me and Jake with affection and gifts. But Heather immediately got jealous of our spotlight and desperately wanted to take it. So she came up with a plan to make herself pregnant with a stranger she met on social media. About a month later, she announced her pregnancy in the middle of Jake's graduation party. Everyone congratulated her, but Steve and Susan, Jake and Heather's parents, gave her a disappointed look because she stole the spotlight from Jake. I gave her a slight frown as well, but congratulated her anyway because I still wanted to get on her good side. However, she burst into tears anyway because she knew Susan was going to have a chat with her after the party about how Jake is her brother and how she shouldn't take his spotlight because it's his day. After her first child was born, a boy, things just got worse with Heather. She eventually got married to a man named Brad. Brad was an okay guy, but he always enabled her actions as well. On their wedding day, Heather made a 45-minute speech about the wedding and how they met and stuff. 45 minutes. But now to the juicy stuff. The day Jake and I got married, Heather gave me dirty looks the entire time while treating the waiters like servants and making a complete fool of herself the whole time. I tried holding back my laughter when Susan told her to either stop being a jerk to her own brother's wedding guests and waitstaff or she could leave. Which she did. She left and flipped over the table with a few extra wedding presents on it before she left with Brad and her 3 kids. But we all carried on after everything was fixed. When it came to my first pregnancy announcement, everyone was ecstatic. But Heather pulled me aside and told me she wished I lost the baby and that it's my fault her parents hate her now. I immediately started sobbing, which caused a lot of suspicion. Jake asked her what she said about me, and she blatantly lied to his face. I told him later that night what she told me that day, and he was livid. He called her to yell at her, and I told him afterward that there's no point, because that's just going to fuel her ego. So he agreed, and we went to bed. My entire pregnancy was awful. I barely kept anything down and almost fainted twice within 8 months. But the day arrived when I had to give birth, and it came out stillborn. We were devastated. Suddenly Heather said out loud the words I still dread to this day. That sucks. But you could always babysit my little angels. They love their aunt so much. And besides, you could always have another baby. The thing about her kids was that they were nice when they wanted something. But when we told them no, they would lose their minds. Anything they would do, they got away with. If Jake or I punished them while they were under our care, Heather would lose her cool and threaten to call the police on us for child abuse, which never happened. But she did have us fooled the first 2 times she threatened to do so. What Heather said about my lost baby set Susan off. She pulled Heather aside and verbally ripped her a new one. I sat there on the bed bawling my eyes out. How could anyone say that to someone that just lost their baby? It was insane. I had lost so much respect for Heather. I spent years being nice to her because I had a kind heart, but I was not going to be kind to her anymore. Some time went by, and after a couple more tries and 1 more baby lost, I almost lost all hope until our last child was born. A girl. Heather was upset that my first living child was a girl, but knew she couldn't do anything because she had already damaged her reputation as the golden child. The karma. Heather got pregnant again with her 4th child, which I supported, wished all the best for her, and got her gifts, only to find out she threw them all away later on. But 7 months into her pregnancy, she lost her baby. No one was with her in the delivery room except for Brad and her oldest child. I felt kind of bad for her because I know how it feels to lose a child. But it became hard because of all those years of her torment toward me and Jake. I ended up having another child after a couple of years, which was another girl. Jake and I are living happily without Heather ever contacting us ever since she lost her baby. This should be a lesson to everyone that karma is a witch, and you should treat people the way you want to be treated, because if you wish something bad on someone, it may backfire on you too. Story 4. About 2 years ago, I was in a government agency class. I, a 45-year-old woman, was the head of an agency. In my field, there are usually only 10% women. It was also a class that someone at my level should have taken many years prior, but old supervisors wouldn't approve of it. So I was in the class with mostly first-line supervisors. This class had about 30 students, all in the same field of work. There were 6 women, a higher percentage than usual. Half of the women were upper management too, but not agency heads. We were split up by tables, 5 students per table. We were assigned our seating for the week-long class. I was late the second day of class. The main instructor, a 62-year-old man, Didn't let me live it down all week and practically brought it up after every break and each morning. I could tell he was a narcissist and egotistical. I dealt with plenty of such personalities in my 25 years in this field. He made lame jokes as often as he could about my tardiness, and I knew it was because of my rank. No jokes about the men who were late all the time. I didn't say anything back and shrugged it off because it's not in my nature to take the bait. I also knew he would just twist it publicly because of my rank. Throughout the week, he also targeted two of the management females who sat at the front of the class. He often made jokes about their size, age, or whatever. Didn't do anything nearly this bad to the men. When he would make jokes about me or the women, I often saw some of the men look around awkwardly. I'm guessing they didn't like it, but of course, they said nothing. All week, we had to take notes because we would do scenarios on the fourth day and have to do group presentations on the last day. The main instructor played the role of an employee who had done unethical acts and was under investigation. During the scenarios, you would have thought he was working on a SAG card or something. The last day, the group with the two management females was the last to present. In their presentation, because we could make up whatever we wanted for resources, the group indicated they had hired a behavioral psychologist to evaluate the bad employee and write up a profile on him. It was priceless when I saw their PowerPoint included a slide with a picture of the instructor that said, "Control freak psychopath. Narcissist who has to keep working at age 62 because he's such an unlovable jerk who had to get divorced 4 times and pays alimony to all of them. Puts women down because it boosts his ego." All in front of the entire class. Everyone roared. The instructor, sitting in the back, said with clenched teeth, "Can't say much when it's true. I do have 4 ex-wives." We, women, just looked at each other in gratitude for the amazing public payback. Story 5. This story goes back to April Fool's Day this year. I, a 31-year-old woman, have lived with my grandparents for years with the idea being that I'll help them out for the rest of their lives. My grandpa, an 82-year-old man, has always been known as a trickster. He loves pulling harmless pranks that just generally cause a mess. This year, he gave me a box that supposedly contained a late birthday present, but was actually a small glitter bomb. As you can imagine, I was covered in glitter, and it was everywhere. We had a good laugh about it, and he thought he won. Well, he was wrong. While he